Should you buy a used Tesla? And if so, what are you looking for? I'm Justin, and this is Cousin Dave, and this is Husman Bros. And today we're going to tell you whether you should think about a used Tesla and what you should be looking for. So Dave, happy to have you here. Dave is he's a tech guy, a gadget guy. You've been on G4, right?
Yeah, G4 Tech TV, and we had a show called Net Talk Live years ago.
And currently you have What's Next Wall Street, right?
Yeah, so we do a podcast where we talk about all science and technology, and a lot of times Elon Musk, another uncle.
He comes up quite a
maybe.
bit. Uncle Elon, sure, he comes up quite a bit.
He comes up all the time because he's really just pushing the envelope on so many things. And we like to talk about what he's working on. And now that he's engaged with the new administration, holy cow. Personally, I think this is going to blow up within 2 months because some large egos are attached to the room.
I'd agree. So let's talk about the cars here. You've had a Tesla. There's a lot of these on the market nowadays, right? And I think they're coming to a good price. There's a tax credit for having a used Tesla as well, right?
That's right. So that was taken away, but it looks like it's coming back. And the current administration that's moving into the office, they traditionally did not like EV cars. But now that Elon is connected to the organization, I think it's going to be interesting. I think tax credits are going to be even stronger.
I think so.
And then also he wants to be in the space program to replace NASA. So Elon and Starlink and all these things that are he's been tinkering with as a hobby, which now makes him the world's richest man,
right,
is really pushing the envelope of what other auto manufacturers were kind of like keeping their toes on the other side of the line. Mm-hmm. And a lot like Ford, Mercedes, these other manufacturers have really pulled back from EV in the last few months.
Right.
So think about the Ford Lightning truck. It was a terrible tow vehicle.
Right.
It was a cool thing to plug into your house and maybe give a backup power supply to your house, but not a lot of people are using it for that. But here, let's talk about these Teslas.
Absolutely.
So I did a Model 3 dual motor with full self-drive, and I thought, like, this is the best technology. It was 2019. It had the full self-drive module, the compute module, that was a modern compute platform. And when I got in the car, it was initially the human-delivered full self-drive software.
Okay.
And it drove like a 13-year-old boy. So really, these cars are iPhones with a car wrapped around them.
Absolutely.
It's the multimedia unit, the display, like the computers inside are very robust. Now they have an Intel platform, they had NVIDIA, so they're going through different iterations of the hardware inside of these devices. Mm-hmm. But that being said, Elon threw out all that code for the human self-drive software, and he went with AI self-driving software a year and a half ago. What happened? It drove like a 14-year-old boy instead of a 13-year-old boy. So the cars really lack confidence. And in a lot of cases, if you read on the forums, the wheels were getting rashed from the car being too close to the curb. Like, how upset would you be?
Super.
Like, when your girlfriend or your wife curbs the wheels, you have someone to yell at.
Right.
Who do you yell at with a full self-driving car that does that?
I don't think Elon will take your call.
He will not.
So let's talk about this one specifically. This is an older generation than yours was. This is a 2013.
It went through 2016 on this series of Model S's.
Okay.
And the problem with buying an older Tesla is, you know how your iPhone only works for so many years to hold a full charge?
Right.
You'll ultimately, now Apple's revealed this, you can look into your software and to see your battery state.
Right.
Teslas, you can't do that unless you use third-party apps.
Okay.
So you can download an app that'll query the batteries and it'll make some assumptions on the life cycle of your batteries. But what happens with lithium cells is they start to grow tendons between the cells, and ultimately they short out that cell.
Okay.
And a friend of mine designed the battery pack on these, and it's freaking amazing because it's like 4,900 of these lithium cells, the same thing your laptop would use.
Right.
And that's what they were able to make these cars so cheaply for, because every other manufacturer had a custom battery pack. But Tesla used standard batteries. But they mixed these cells in a sequence of series and parallel circuits. So the batteries would, if you lost a module, it wouldn't take the whole pack down.
Makes sense.
Right? So what you'll find on these cars as they get older, the range goes from 300 to 240 to 200 miles to hundreds and 60s or so miles. That kind of sucks, but if you're just using it for a commuter car around a city, that's great. My Model 3, I would take between Houston and Dallas, because my apartment in Houston had a free charger at the apartment.
Okay.
And then I've got a charger here at my shop. There's a city in Centerville, Texas, that was right in the middle. They had a great barbecue place. I could take my Tesla from Houston to Centerville, plug it in, go get a barbecue, go to the bathroom, and come back, and the charge would be to the state that I could make it to the rest of the way to my shop.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people don't have that convenience of charging everywhere, and if you live in an apartment, forget about it.
Right.
You're not going to go to a charging station at a mall and charge. And in fact, it makes me sad because there are a lot of chargers in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And on Saturday, you'll see cars just lined up, rows to get in to go to the charging stations.
Right.
So really, I would treat the Model 3 or Model Y or Model S as a get-about car for, a second car for your household.
Right.
Because as these get older, the capacity just gets less and less and less.
This one's a 2016. Is there any math where you can guesstimate what the capacity is on this car?
You can't, because if you use a supercharger to charge these, you're putting tons of current into these at a very fast rate. And the car does what's called a preconditioning.
Okay.
So it has coolant running through the battery packs. And if you put in the GPS, the built-in integrated software for Tesla, if you put in the location of a supercharger, it does what's called a preconditioning of the battery. And this is super clever. It starts running coolant through the batteries to get them ready, or it brings them up to temperature first.
So you can charge.
So you can charge, because they do better when they're warm.
Right.
And then once you're plugged in, it normalizes the temperature into the right range that it likes to see this fast DC current going into the batteries. So the one that I bought, they only charged it at home on the wall charger. The wall chargers, you can buy the basic one that plugs into the 110 outlet, or the one that gets hardwired into the house, and they had a hardwired charger. So I knew that the batteries were in decent shape. So my 2019 was 4 years old at the time, and it was a long range, so it went from 300 miles to like 20% less. So I'm at 200 and something miles. And that was okay for me because I had that Centerville stop right in the middle.
Right.
But I loved the vehicle. It was equivalent in speed to a Porsche Turbo.
Right.
Four-wheel drive. You could aim that thing like a dart, hit the accelerator, and it would be at the next location you wanted.
I've heard that about them. But in that way, they're fun. So what are we looking for then? You knew how yours was charged. Is that the first thing you want to look for and ask? Can you tell that?
You can't tell that. Okay. Like with most vehicles, you can hook up an OBD2 adapter, and you can see how many times launch control was used.
Okay.
Like BMWs and Porsches, you can see the red line pegging, how many times they hit red line.
Right.
Red line. You really can't do that. You can only use third-party apps to monitor the current state of the battery.
You can't see what's happened in the past.
You can't see how much of a jerk they were pushing this thing to the limit. So what I like to do is just overall body condition. Now these bodies are made of aluminum,
right?
So that means they're more prone to be dented.
I saw the front bumper on this one.
Yeah, so the front bumper on this one, this is a flexible bumper, and on the earlier models they used ultrasonic sensors, which are the little red dots. Elon went away from that, and now he has a camera-only system, which has its limitations. Like your camera, which normally sits up at the mirror, it's not going to be able to tell when you're going to hit a curb or hit a pole or back into a garage. So he's really leveraging technology, I think, a little too much, instead of going to the tried and true methods. So there's the second issue about the chipping that I think you were alluding to is there wasn't enough flex agent put on this, and the flex agent is what gives it a little bit of give. So rocks ping off of this.
So you had a newer one. This 2016, you had a 2019. Was the build quality better? Because I've looked over this one and I'm not very impressed with some of the things that I see.
Yeah, it's notorious for what's called the gaps.
Right.
And if you think about this, if I put my thumb in this space and then my thumb over here, there's an extra few millimeters on the side of the gap. So build quality is notoriously bad. Another thing that people don't like is the way the chrome lines up on the side. So if you look here, this chrome piece is a millimeter or two lower than this one. But look, if you want to buy a piece of art, buy a Rolls Royce.
Right, buy a Porsche.
You got to be in a higher caliber of cars. You can buy Teslas because people are so upset with Uncle Elon. You can buy these for a fraction of the price that you could. And remember, during COVID, Teslas, you couldn't get one.
Right.
People, the used market was more expensive than the new market for Model 3s and Model Ys.
This one was under warranty for quite some time. I think that Uncle Elon knew that the build quality was maybe not what it should have been for the dollars for this car, and so it was under warranty for a long time. And I know that Grayson, who owns this one, he had to have the window rubber replaced because the window was chewing it up. Okay. And now that they replaced it, though, we're going to talk about panel gaps again. You see how tight it is up top. In fact, it overlaps on top.
I heard it actually hit this plastic and you see a little bit of wear.
I saw that.
What you can do for this rubber is there's a dry silicone lube So you should do this on every car, actually.
Right.
Put the dry silicone lube on a towel, wipe it on the rubber to give that rubber a little bit of flex and also give it a little bit of slipperiness.
So do these all universally have these bad gaps? Like, if you're looking at one and you find one that's got better gaps, is that a better car?
So, of course, yeah, because every little gap relates to the next thing. And probably what could be done here is Grayson's very technical.
Right.
He could get inside the door and then
tune it.
make an adjustment on this window to bring this side of it forward a little bit, and that would prevent this panel from being dinged. But look, everybo's not that technical.
Right.
And the problem with the Model S, which I love the shape of this car, they really did a nice job for, what do you call it, a saloon?
Yes, that's very nice.
But what they did is they had very expensive parts like this revealing door handle, which is sexy and like preventing side drag is
Right.
the objective for this. But on the Model 3 and the Model Y, they made this a manual system. So you just push in this section and then the door handle reveals itself.
So another thing to break.
This is another thing to break. And they went through 4 revisions of this door handle.
Okay.
They have reed switches and ability to know like where the handle fits on the, whether it's flush or out.
Got it.
And they went to a magnetic system which uses no switches.
Okay.
So as you buy new versions of this handle, because they do break, you can buy a more upgraded version that the car will automatically know how to handle.
So will that show up on Carfax if these handles have been replaced?
That's a good question because the Tesla handles this maintenance on their own.
Right.
And on my car, well, I did pull a Carfax for it, but mine had the newer model handles that weren't motorized.
So that wasn't something.
It wasn't in there, yeah. So
Now, could you see anything on your Carfax of other things that Tesla had done, or do they not report to Carfax?
they do report to Carfax, but it was limited. And really the only thing I had to do to mine, short of switches on the seats were broken because he had kids and
Right.
the kids' toes when they were standing on the pillar, the bottom of the door, they would step on the switches and break those off.
Got it.
The big thing that mine had, and you can go into the service mode on the computer to see what's up with the car, my battery system was lacking coolant. So if I unwind that, that means when they were charging it on 220 volts, the coolant level, if it was low, it might not have been cooling the batteries at the right rate.
Got it.
The good news is the coolant on these is the same that BMW uses. It's G48.
Okay.
And Tesla says that you can't do this yourself, but absolutely, you can take the frunk apart and you can find the coolant reservoir. You can open the lid, put a funnel in it, and put G48
Everything's good.
standard antifreeze in it, and fix it yourself.
Now, you said these always go back to Tesla. So
Well, now there's some third-party
that was my
repair
question.
shops. Yeah.
Okay, so third-party repair shops, but for most things, it does, like major things have to go back to Tesla, right?
So you can find a lot of used parts on eBay for these.
Oh, really?
So on eBay, like I found the door, the seat switches that were inside the door, but I couldn't find the little knob. So I went to Tesla and bought the knob. The knob was $10.
Right.
Elon he was trying to manufacture so many of these for such a long time that there wasn't a lot of replacement parts available during the COVID era. Now there's more parts available. But if you think about it, you've got a cooler up in the front here, and I see in this one, there's a chance that that's cracked, or maybe that's just a stylized way that they put that grill in there. So all of these panels, all the little bits of plastic that can be hurt from you driving over debris or whatever, you can find these on eBay. The good news about Tesla, though, is a lot of stuff you can do in the app. So you can start a little chat and say,
Okay.
I need this part. And what's cool is you go to the parts shop, and all major cities have Tesla parts,
Right.
Or Tesla centers, and you can go there and they'll have the part at the counter for you, and you can pay for it in the app.
Nice.
So that was different from any other car
You
that
don't
I
have to call
restore.
Porsche and give them the VIN number and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Got it.
exactly. You don't need to do that necessarily.
So on this car,
So I've got the key in my pocket. So as I come up, it should reveal. There it is. And now we can pull.
so this is the thing that Grayson was telling us about this car, and you see the gap here.
Yeah.
So-
So in this case, I think, Justin, that the clips have just fatigued over time, or maybe it's missing one clip. Generally, there'd be like 3 or 4 clips to hold that in. So when you close the door, if you do it with alacrity, that was a nice close.
Well, let's see if it did
so
it.
it's going to stay there.
Nope.
Oh wow, that was a beautiful close.
I know, it was very nice.
Yeah.
I've been yelled at by plenty of Uber guys for closing them too hard. But you see, things like this you have to look for as well. You may come and be looking at this car, and they've already done this, And by the time you decide to buy it and drive away, you realize you've got a gap problem. And again, not the end of the world, but something that on a car that was originally this expensive seems strange to me to be that worn out after this long.
Yeah. Let's take a look inside. I want to show you the
Absolutely.
computer and what to look for on the compute module. All right, so the most important thing in my world, because this is an iPhone on wheels, is to look at the LCDs. There's a delamination that takes place, so you'll start to see like two pieces of glass start to come apart, and you'll see essentially noise or occlusions on the corners. But if the warranty's out, that's going to be an expensive display. And you can find these aftermarket, but then you have to worry about marrying the LCD to the computer, which sometimes can be difficult. But what I like to do when I get in a Tesla, you click the car button. Once you click the car, go to software. And now we can see everything about this car. So we've got a 75D, we've got this mileage, here's the VIN, and this has the Autopilot 1.0 computer. Mine had the 2.5, now they're on higher versions of that. And if I click additional vehicle information here, this tells me a little bit more about it. So this has the NVIDIA CPU, which I talked about before, which is really out of date now. The Autopilot 1 is an antique. It also tells me that this is a dual motor, which I knew from the D up front there. But I can see that we've got an induction motor up front and the induction small motor. So whenever I would buy these, and there's a lot of them listed on Facebook Marketplace, I'd ask for these two pictures. I'd ask for the additional vehicle information picture and this one here. Now this one has highway autopilot. And remember with mine, I wanted full self-drive, but I just was not happy with it because I don't want the car curbing my wheels.
Right.
I think highway autopilot is what you should buy today. Now Elon keeps teasing that he's going to have the ability for your car to act as a robo-taxi to drive around. That day's not going to happen. And he did launch the robo-taxi. So look, Elon's not going to rob from his own bread and butter.
Right.
Your car is going to be in the garage. You're going to be driving it. And I think you can do a much better job keeping the car in check than Elon's autopilot can today.
So the highway cruise, is that equivalent to Porsche's Super Cruise that changes lanes and
That's
whatnot?
right. It'll change lanes. You have to turn on the blinker. And once you turn on the blinker, the car will move for you. And on Autopilot 1, I don't think that's capable. I think it was doing that for me on Autopilot 2.5.
Okay.
So despite what advertised today, a lot of these features won't work on the older systems. Now, another thing he's doing is he's giving free Autopilot for a month. Think about iOS, your iPhone. They're making billions of dollars selling apps.
Right.
Elon's trying to get this car into the
Same
app
principle.
economy as well. So he gives you free service, just like right now, XM radio, as we film this right after Thanksgiving, before Christmas. Satellite radio is free in any car because they're trying to get you hooked onto the service.
Right.
Elon's doing that again with full self-drive.
Can you upgrade the CPUs on these?
So you can technically. There are versions of the upgrade CPU for the Model S. A lot of times you can find it through third parties to do the upgrade. And also Tesla will do it up to a certain year model. It's very expensive. It can be thousands of dollars. And I don't think it warrants the upgrade.
So better to find a car with it if you want that.
Yeah, but the full self-drive, it just doesn't have the alacrity that I would like as a driver. So,
But you're a car driver guy. That's not for guys like you, I don't think.
so the guy that bought my car, he said, we go golfing. I want to use full self-drive to get home after a round of golf. And and I don't think it was because he was worn out from golfing. I think there might have been
You're
another.
a car girl, right?
I think the car girl might have made too many visits to him. And I said, please don't do that because think about it. This car driving, it's like a 14-year-old driving you home. If you want the best technology, if you want a toy, like if you were going to buy a Porsche, would I buy a Model 3 dual motor as a toy? Yeah, it's pretty cool, but you look like every other Model 3. And half the game of cars and the hobby of collecting cars is to customize a car and make it look cool yourself. Now, I did a little bit of that. I had performance wheels that I powder coated in a tuxedo black with a little metallic finish. So it was a beautiful evolution of what Elon's team came up with. But that was really all the customizing I wanted to do on it.
So that brings up another question. Are there aftermarket custom support for these?
When you say support, like maintenance and service?
Not maintenance, but support. Like, does someone make things, I've got my customized Cayennes and people make parts for that.
Oh, sure.
Is there a lot of that around?
Oh yeah, all over Asia. There's mirror caps, there's new console pieces because sometimes the plastic gets sticky. So there's carbon fiber bits you can put all throughout the interior. So yeah, you can black out the trim. So you can do some.
There are some things available.
Yep, but not a whole lot, and a lot of it is just glue-on accessories that are plastic.
Right. So it's not really, it's nothing exciting.
Yeah, as far as performance updates, there are modules you can do what's called a man-in-the-middle attack, and that's a computing term. So you can buy modules that go into the computer system to give it boosts like little performance upgrades that Tesla would normally charge for. And yeah, you can buy a couple different modules, and really the forums are keeping up to date on that. There's a conference I like to go to called DEF CON, which is a computer security conference in Vegas every year. And early on in the Model S production, Elon and his team would have a car there with an Ethernet jack on it, and they'd let hackers get into the car and try and do what's called penetration testing to get into the systems. And that was at the time when Toyotas and some of the other manufacturers were having their cars taken over by hackers through the telematics system.
So you showed us the screens. Anything else we should be looking for, aside from the basic things that you look for, wear and tear and things like that?
Yeah, and I always look for orange peel on the cars, but really the paint jobs aren't so good on these.
Right.
So if you're looking at orange peel, it might be factory orange peel from this. And a thing that Elon tried to do with these is he tried to use too much robotics to build the Model 3 and the Model Y.
Okay.
The S was a combination of robotics and humans, which is the same thing Porsche does. I went on a Porsche factory tour a decade ago, and they had a lot of robotics building the cars. And it's really doing things like moving the dashboard into the car, or when the two halves of the car are assimilated. So the engine and drivetrain gets pulled into the Porsche electronically, or mechanically with robots, right? The Model 3 and Model Y, the robots, Elon wanted them to do everything, and they're just not as nimble as humans, and that's probably why we have panel gap issues.
And the way they're just kind of slapped together because robots don't care.
Robots don't care, but humans do, and humans can have the what I call is the 10,000 hours. So when you know how to do something, sew a seat, install a door, whatever, those 10,000 hours, you can feel in your thumb, okay, this is the right gap. You don't even need a micrometer to look at this, and that's only something that a human can do with doing something time and time again.
So if you're shopping for one of these, you look for a day the robots were doing their best.
So they used to, with British cars, I've owned a few of those. You've got a British car. They always said on Friday about 3 p.m.
Right, that was when the Guinness came out.
The Guinness came out, and the car gaps were a little bit different. But look, these cars are iPhones. The displays, everything about it is so cool and so revolutionary. And you got to hand it to Elon. He was the world's brokest guy because he was nearly out of money when the Model S was launching. And I have several friends that made $100,000 payments on the Model S in 2012 when he was broke because they wanted to get him over the hump to make this car. And my buddy that worked on the Roadster and the Model S program, he tells me stories about how they were constantly evolving the production line. So if you think about the car, you've got tick-tock is the terminology that chips use. So like a car will be a 997, 997.2. And that 997.2, a lot of the changes happen for the .2 version, which it fixes all the bugs of .1. Tesla was constantly making improvements throughout the production line.
So this might be a .7.
Yeah, you have no idea. Right.
Where it was in the evolution of the growing.
Now people on the forums, they keep track of this and like what battery packs are they using? Is this the new cell or the old cell? So the 18650 cells are out now. And now there's a new model. So really all you can do is look to see software versions and hardware versions and try and get the highest level of those that you can, because the software needs the higher horsepower processor. It's like if you have an old PC, you know, we're not using Pentium machines anymore, which is, you know, what this would be. We're now using Xenon or the ARM series processors. And you want to find the best processor you can get if you're into the tech stuff on this.
Absolutely. Okay, anything else that we should look for, period?
I would ask the seller, if you coming in as a buyer, like how often do they supercharge it? Did they use this on long road trips, or they just use it around the house? So many people have these as second cars for the family, and I'd much rather buy a system that was plugged in the wall in 110 or 220 than one that was supercharged.
So the big question we had, should you buy one of these?
So they're heavy cars. They're going to burn through tires. So if you like to drive it hard, you're moving all that weight around on those tires so the rubber gets scrubbed off. And because it has so much performance, because it acts like a Porsche Turbo, if you don't take it easy, you're going to be buying tires a lot more. Hey, look, they're fun. I had mine for a year. That's all I needed to get out of it because personally, I like the charm and charisma of the old cars. So I got my use out of it and moved on to the next toy.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about these, but there's plenty of used ones on the market.
Yep.
And I think it's something that people are going to be looking for, and I think you've been a great help today, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, to summarize then, you want to check your panel gaps to see if the robots had had their beers that day or not. You want to take a look at that software for sure. Dave gave some really good insight on what you're looking for in the heart of this thing.
Then the hardware, the compute module, make
Right.
sure you've got a version 3 or higher, I think, if you want to play with the technology. Faster's better.
Always, newer's better, always, right? So buy the best one you can. As with all cars, look at the paint, look at the maintenance that's been done, ask the owner, look at the inside things here. Check all your door handles, because these door handles are fragile and on the 3rd iteration now, right?
Yeah, the Model 3 and the Model Y do not have those self-revealing door handles. So if you get those kind of cars, you don't have to worry about the mechanics wearing out on these, which they do.
But as always, in every car purchase, you're buying the previous owner's care for this car, right? So interview that owner, ask them the questions. Hey, tell me what have your problems been? What have you done to this car? How have you charged it? These are all over the map price-wise. I think they're probably 30 to 40.
30 to 40, but you can find some for like 12,000 that need new battery packs. And there are companies that will sell you a whole battery pack for these. Now that's like replacing your heart, so you might not want to go into that deep dive unless you have a garage.
That sounds like a potential nightmare to me, but just curious, what does a battery pack cost for one of these? Do you have any idea?
25 grand from Tesla and less for other ones, but the Tesla one does come with a warranty.
Okay, so that's good. And the warranty on these is very good, as we talked about. They last a long time. So that would be the way to go, although I would say don't buy one that needs the battery pack replacement unless it's a screaming deal for some reason, right?
Too much even for me, and I'm working on cars all the time. I would not do a battery pack on these.
Dave's my favorite nerd, and if he says no, I won't do it. So thank you for watching. Thank you, Dave. Always enjoyable to hang out with you and learn from you. And you guys subscribe for more great content like this, and leave a comment down below. What other buyer guides are you looking for?